We are at the point of this conference that I've been waiting for an entire year. I said a prayer about a year ago, and it was one of those, almost like those foxhole prayers, like, please God, I'll do anything if only you'll, and then fill in the blank. I first heard our speaker tonight on a tape that I came into possession of because I was elected to be the tape librarian for the International Advisory Council at the International Convention of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1995 in San Diego. And that library has about 140 tapes in it, and this speaker had more tapes in that library than anybody else. And I waited for a while to listen to one of them, and I put it in my car's tape player one morning on the way to work, and I was absolutely electrified. And I just thought to myself, we've got to get this woman for the women's conference. And I had the opportunity and the pleasure of meeting her in May when I went to the Dallas Roundup, and I was as bowled over by her in person as I had been by listening to her on tape. It is my great pleasure to present to you tonight our Saturday night speaker, Lila R. from Santa Monica, California. Would you please give her a warm welcome?
My name is Lila, and I'm an alcoholic. I have to wait until God shows up anyway, so I might as well organize myself while I'm doing it. Got some extra raffle tickets. Just to the light. I'll assume it's spiritual. Bless myself or something. I'm looking at Mary's book for one moment because I want to just put chapter 5 in front of me in case I forget the steps and embarrass myself. Could happen. After that chocolate cake, I decided to have a cup of tea. Oh, my God. It hasn't kicked in yet, but when it does, you'll know. Oh, God. Well, I can't find chapter 5, so I don't know what the hell that means. I want to thank Mary very much for asking me to join you tonight and for her year of email. She's organized and efficient and dedicated, and it's Jane and I have been delighted when we've been away out of town or traveling and come home and do whatever you do to the computer, and there's an email message from Mary Monk advising us about what is the latest on the women's conference. I've been sober over 27 years, and this is the first time that I've heard about your conference. So it's a well-kept secret in Alcoholics Anonymous, which I intend to absolutely tell everybody about. Well, with the exception of Glenn, who we're going to have to ask to identify, maybe you can assume a feminine consciousness or something. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to so many women in one room at one time that are all sober. I have been actually looking forward to wondering what would that feel like, to talk to almost whatever number of sober women. So far, I don't feel a bloody thing. I mean, I need a few minutes to warm up in case you haven't noticed, You see, I believe that I'm the kind of speaker I actually always have been. I've always envied people who get up and they say, my name is so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic, and this is exactly my story, and they tell the same story each and every time. I don't have that at all. When I turned 20 years sober, or around 18 actually, I decided, I talked about it with God later, but I first decided that my responsibility really was to talk to you about who I am, how I feel, how it is to be a sober woman. Obviously, I drank, or I could not have stood AA for 27 years. You have to really want to be here. For all of those days and weeks and months and hours when all those personalities precede the principles by a long shot. Let me just organize myself here because I promised the taper I would cooperate. So, God's on the way. I'm getting ready. Actually, I'm having a hot flash. I mean, how many times in my sober life am I going to be able to say that at a convention? Oh, Lord. And I'm one of those women that has decided to go through menopause the natural way. I don't know. I wouldn't clap. You should see me drive. Oh, God. I believe, as best I know from my family background, that heart disease is not really a big deal, and neither is that bone deficiency. So, my mother had 7 children. 5 of us were born in Ireland, 1 in Canada, and 1 in the United States of America. I figure I can do almost anything. That kind of heritage. I don't recommend it necessarily, but I don't know. A few months ago I was driving and I found myself, preparing to yell at people, not just because they were doing something, but in anticipation that they for certainly sure would do something. And I would blow the horn preceding what I knew they were stupidly going to do because I could just imagine what they were thinking by the way they were driving. And Jane said to me, it's getting very difficult to be in the car with you. It was getting difficult for me to be in the car with me. What the hell? It was very hard for me because now normally, it's just, I don't know, I think it just comes of years of resistance and then years of acceptance that you get to be familiar with yourself. I think if you stay sober long enough, it's one of the great benefits is that you A, see yourself in retrospect, and B, you just get to know yourself a little bit better. And that sense of unmanageability, when it comes over me, I kind of know it. But I don't know, I hit that plateau of the change of women, and I lost all ability to know I was in complete madness until I was already blowing the horn and crazy. It's just awful. Now what has this got to do with talking at an AA meeting? Everything. Everything. The fact that I showed up, the fact that I'm here, the fact that I'm talking, the fact that I'm going through the change, the fact that I'm alive, the fact that I breathe, has got everything to do with my life in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because without all those changes and without AA, I wouldn't know how to go through them. I wouldn't go through them. I would take something. I would do something. I would make it easier. I would find the easier, softer way. I would escape. It would go away. I certainly would blame you. So any event in my life, no matter how big, how little, how small, how big, huge, small, insignificant, it doesn't matter, is about staying sober. It's about living a moment at a time. It's taken me so many years to understand that quality precedes quantity. Quality of my day. So I went to an acupuncturist for this problem, this driving problem. This headache problem and this every hour on the hour wake up problem. And I told her that she had to help me or I was probably going to kill someone. And so now I'm taking this ghastly herbal tea regularly and getting acupuncture treatments once a month. And I don't know, since everything is basically psychological and I have a problem with the mind, I can almost make anything that I do acceptable to me. And believe it or not, it's working, except for the odd little flash, when you least want it. I'm going to be 50 years of age this year. It's fantastic, isn't it? To have lived so long when you were sure you were going to be dead in your early 20s. And to have lived most of my life sober. Incredible. My life has just begun. Now, I've done a lot of things. And I suppose by society standard, I've accomplished a lot. And, I've done all the things you're supposed to do to get all the pats on the back. Made all the money, did all the things, had the power, been the executive, been the fantasy of most women. Not all of them. Just the ones that want to get the hell out of the house. But here I am, 50 years of age, sober, and beginning again. I believe that if you can stay sober for any given period of time, you will get to live as many lifetimes as you want to while you're alive. You no longer have to die, I believe, in order to change and to grow and to do things entirely different. I mean, the miracle of the change of perception is so profound and so huge and so big that I enter my 50th year with more anticipation, excitement, and curiosity than I ever have before. I can hardly believe it myself. If it were not for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, why, I would not have known what not to do. I have learned in the last number of years how to live by the process of substitution. I have come to understand how to substitute that is painful, the problem that is painful, for the spiritual solution. It's taken so long. When I got sober in 1969 at the Hole in the Ground in Huntington Park, it was exactly what it sounds like. You went down 12 steps. In fact, still having meetings there, and it is the oldest meeting held in the same place in Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I walked into that tiny, weeny little room, it looked as big as this to me. I only know it's small because I was there for the 50th anniversary. I couldn't believe it. So small. But I was so small when I joined AA. I was so insignificant in my own eyes. I was so little and I was so terrified that room was as big as this ballroom. And there were all these people in there, and they all had names like Tex. And they were like big, huge belts, big silver things with cowboys and horses and stagecoaches and things on the belt. And really. And then there was this guy, however, that was a friend of our family's for many, many years. His name was Duke, and he always wore a suit. Morning, noon, and night. I think he slept in the thing and got up. Never saw him without a suit. Duke Carson. I will be forever grateful to Duke Carson. And that's how I ended up one night, the Hole in the Ground in Huntington Park. How I got there is really not that important. I mean, everybody's got their story about how they got there. A couple of days before I got there, my greatest friend had stopped being my greatest friend. Alcohol had stopped working for me. I could not get sober and I could not get drunk. I was the kind of alcoholic simply that drank anything that was brown. When there was nothing that was brown, I drank anything that was white. When there was nothing that was white, I drank anything at all. I don't know if there's an invisible line. I don't know if I was born an alcoholic. I don't know if I thought myself into it. I don't know if the disease took over, and I could care less. I only worried about that in the first few years when I was trying to half figure out how to get the hell out of here. But now that I've decided I want to stay, I don't care what it cost or what it's like or what happened for me to get here. If there is an invisible line, I don't ever recall crossing it. And if I did, it was when I was probably 3. I used to love to have a bottle of stout, Guinness's stout, with my Uncle Neil. Well, he liked it too, so I'd always have 2 Guinness's stout with Uncle Neil. They put sugar in it, very good for you when you're a child in Ireland. Does something for the stomach. I don't know what it did for my stomach, but it gave me the ability to drink like the rest of them. Was that when I became an alcoholic? I don't think so. Something had gone on, though, because years later, when I was in, Canada, the United States, I used to like to set up an ironing board and serve my little friends my mother's brandy that she had for the priests. So already, before I ever really got into the thrust of my disease, I had all the accoutrements already ready, setting up an ironing board. And, the level of us, it was great, really. You could just graduate as I grew up. I knew how to do all of that. I really believe that I had the consciousness, and they say it's a disease of the mind, and I was really ready, I don't necessarily think that there's normies and alcoholic. There's people out there, we all have problems. I got over that. They're a different thing. A long time ago, when I realized we're really all the same, the difference was I chose to solve my problem with alcohol. They just go stark raving mad all on their own. I don't know. I think I had the easiest, softer way there for a lot of years. In fact, I used to joke about it, but I know that it's a truth now, that if I had not been drinking, I probably would have lost my mind. I certainly would have perhaps considered killing myself. So it was a very valuable thing for me for quite a while, really. I used to start to drink to relax, calm myself down, because after all, I was dying from sort of 2 diseases at the same time there for short time. The disease of potential and the disease of alcoholism were running neck and neck. So I used to have a drink just to calm down, keep myself calm, so that I could think, so I could react better. In fact, I had some of what I used to think were my most brilliant moments when I was completely gone. I regret that I've never remembered what they were, but I could feel that they were brilliant. I knew just before I went out that there was a brilliant thought there. In fact, I was really able to identify a profound spiritual experience by knowing how many I had while I was drinking. Just before I passed out, there was that moment, that moment when you leave your body, when you're just in complete one with all humanity and all mankind. That's what alcohol did for me. There was that moment, and I would think, this is it, where I felt together, where I felt part of, where I felt unafraid of you and didn't care what you thought or what I thought. I was one with the world. And then I was gone. I don't know what happened, but I would just sort of wake up in the morning and felt one with myself. So the 2 days before I joined Alcoholics Anonymous, I was unable to move my neck. I was unable to move my head to any side. I was suffering from alcoholic paralysis. And through a series of events that are really profound now, I ended up at the Hole in the Ground in Huntington Park. And there they all were. And I decided immediately that I was only going to stay for a short period of time. I was just going to stay until my fear went away. You see, I was so terrified that I would drink, I had to go to AA. I was afraid to drink right then and there. I needed to just get myself together first. I only stayed because I was afraid. I didn't feel a miraculous touch on the shoulder or a big light or anything. I only went because I knew that if I didn't go to the meetings, I would drink. And I couldn't drink just at this time. Now, it's taken me years to understand that process and what it really meant. That my prayers had been answered while I was down on the bathroom floor. In my drunkenness, I was heard. In the unconsciousness of a blackout, I was heard. When I would be coming out of that blackout, I would say, go ahead, go right in front now and distract me. Go on. About to have a spiritual experience and you're walking in front of the podium. As I was coming out of that blackout, I would say, God, help me. But as soon as the me came out of my mouth, I was conscious enough to be raged that I had asked God to help me. I didn't need anybody's help. I had never needed anyone's help. I never would need anyone's help. I didn't need anyone's help now. And I dragged myself up the porcelain sink. And I held on tight to the edge of that sink while I looked in the mirror. And I could tell if that mirror was going up and down that I still had to pass out one more time. But if that mirror was solid, I could get through that morning. I could at least get to the bottle. Now that's how I reacted. Now I know that I was heard. Now I know that the power of prayer operates somewhere in that intuitive me. And that if I make enough room for that God, for that intuition to take force, it will create an event that will change my life. So in a blackout unconscious, I pray the alcoholic prayer. God help me. And through a series of events that obviously were of a profound spiritual nature, I ended up in the hole in the ground in Huntington Park. It was then my job to do my part. And that's what Duke told me. Simply. He said, you're an alcoholic. Oh, to hear such a thing. There was the possibility I was an alcoholic. God knows I acted like I might be alcoholic. Everyone I knew, now they were real alcoholics. I had just screwed up a little bit. I was a little tense. Things were not in order. My life, of course, was not really wrapped, but I would be able to do that again. It was going to be all right. Within a week, I couldn't figure out how the hell I was going to stay sober. Within a week, I knew that I had to stay sober. Within 2 weeks, I was still feeling the pain of sobriety. I hated sobriety so much that my hair hurt. My eyelashes hurt. I sweat green. I would go to the bloody meetings and they would talk about all this wonderful stuff and blah, 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 and prison escapes. And 27 years ago, they would tell you if they beat people up and rob banks. And now you say anything, come in and they arrest you right on the spot. But then the stories were great. I loved the stories. I thought I haven't done any of that. And had never been arrested. I certainly had been stopped enough time, but I was Irish, and when I drank I had a terrific brogue, and I always found a cop that's mother's was named Kathleen and was always going home again, and he always took me home again, and it was really great, and on the way home I would sing Danny Boy, and the cop would cry, and I would cry, and they all cry. So, hey, I like Chicago. I came off that thing on the freeway there, whatever your roads are called here, and I saw American Heritage Foundation off on Route 84. I thought, this is my town. This is my town. So there I was going home after these meetings and listening to these stories and thinking, what am I doing here? I used to get dressed up to go to the meetings. I would wear these, never mind, but that's kind of the brand name. And I would wear all this kind of stuff, and I would make sure, that I looked really good. Because I didn't want you to think I was an alcoholic. Think 24 drunk guys that escaped from some lunatic asylum, and I'm worried about what they're going to think about my alcoholism. Unbelievable. The woman in there with no teeth, and another woman that looked like she, just got teeth. They stuck way out, and, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was there, and I'm looking at their teeth and their no teeth, and these guys and their T-shirts and plaid shirts and Duke with the book, and you're an alcoholic, and oh my God, how could this possibly be happening to me? Now you would think I would have run out of there but no, I'm going every night. Every night. No intention of staying, mind you, but Every night, and I'm there like they say, you got to come early, and, not like now, everybody rolls in whenever the hell they want to, and they roll out whenever the hell. I don't understand that kind of AA. I mean, we have to be there early. If we didn't get there early, we did not get the meeting before the meeting, where they told you what they wanted you to do for the whole next day. And then we got the meeting, and then you couldn't just dash out of there because somebody had an ice cream cake or some other godforsaken thing that they made you eat. Jelly donuts were really big. Yeah, jelly donuts at night. At night even, they had the jelly donuts. And they make you eat like 4 or 5 of these things, and they explain to me, your sugar is completely shot, I was eating jelly donuts and Hershey bars and chocolate milk and orange juice and, and I was hypoglycemic, I almost died on this program from, being nursed through the hole in the ground in Huntington Park. They didn't tell me to not smoke. They said, smoke more, smoke more, smoke more. They'd make this coffee, and I understood when I drank that coffee why they had no teeth, okay, because that thing was boy. But there was something about the teeth I identified with, because you see, I was the kind of alcoholic that I found that alcoholic dentist, and I talked to him, and was little strip malls, and explained to him that I thought, my teeth were shrinking. And he understood that. Found the right guy, and then I explained to him that I couldn't go through this, don't like dentists and pain, and I needed it all done like one night. Well, he understood that too. We had a few drinks at the place next door to negotiate the deal, and then we came over to his place and had a couple of drinks, and then he gave me whatever you'd do to knock somebody completely out. And that, I was sober maybe 10 years, so when it was time to change those teeth, they couldn't get them out. My mouth, it was extraordinary. The dentist said, who put these in? I said, I don't know, but the guy was incredible. Now, I wouldn't mind, but I went to visit my mother shortly thereafter, and she was just happy to see me. The parents are of practicing alcoholics. They're just glad to see you because they don't know when they're not going to see you. And she said to me, something's different. And I said, yeah. She said, it's the strangest thing. She said, but your teeth look shorter. So I kind of identified with the lack of teeth and all that at the Huntington down there, and I started to identify with these prisoners and who'd been to jail, and I started to identify with wanting to rob a bank. I had a little financial insecurity. And I started to have, a real kind of like kinship developing with this group, and Duke would drag me back in the side area there where they had a kind of a kitchen. If you were really special, I was really special, because he knew my family. And, it's not what's who you know, even in AA, we can tell you. But there was a little throw-up room right behind there, too. And I found out later he just wanted to keep me close to that room because I was new and they just wanted you to be, appropriate when you suddenly decided that it was all over. So I was in that little room a few times, actually. It was a really wonderful experience. And when I would come out of the room, that's when you're really surrendered sober, after you've had a good physical upset. And that's when Duke would grab me and open the book, like I cared what was in that book. And he would say, you're an alcoholic, and there's 4 things you have to do. Because you're the kind of alcoholic that has to stay sober for the rest of your life. Oh, I could barely get home. And the guy's talking about the rest of my life. But you see, he was right. I am that kind of alcoholic. I have to stay sober for the rest of my life. How I do that is one day at a time. For the rest of my life, I allow no thought. I have had the good fortune in my sobriety to travel this world, to be a lot of places. To be in a lot of places where alcohol is served and phenomenal desserts and built in great little monumental things and poured alcohol all over them. And I have to tell you that I have never had a dessert where I have not questioned the chef. And I don't care. I check everything. Because I was the kind of alcoholic that if you came to a party at my home and you were sober, I did not want you there. And if you insisted upon staying, I got you drunk. Do you think for one moment that I am not going to be cautious about my sobriety when there's people like me out there? And so I know that I must stay sober for the rest of my life, and I have gone to great lengths to make sure that I do. I heard all those things, if you don't want to slip, don't go where it's slippery. So simple, so profound. Does it affect my life today? Of course it does. If I don't want negative thinking, if I don't want to go into that depression that I am prone and have had in my sobriety, if I don't want to go to those negative places, then I don't go into that negative world. I catch myself and I stop. And I say to myself the same thing that I said about the disease of alcoholism as it pertained to my physical illness. For the soul sickness that comes upon us now, I am powerless over whatever it is, and my life is unmanageable. I can be powerless over a fly bugging me, buzzing around. I am so trained in understanding that there's nothing I can do about that I now refer to the first step for almost anything that happens in my life. It's a natural instinct for me to say, I am powerless over this thing, because I feel that unmanageability. I feel that unmanageability. He said, you cannot drink no matter what. Oh, if I had known what the whats were going to be. The sadness and the death and the things that life presents one day at a time. I have had great sadness. I have had great sadness that I was able to resolve, and I've had great sadness that I was able to resolve. I've had grief. I've had grief that stayed with me for years until I could forgive myself over the death of my brother who died from this disease. I have had sadness and upset, and I have not had to drink. And I have had something even more significant than all of that happen to me. I have become excited. I have had joy. I have had success. I have had happiness. I have had good things happen to me. I was very capable of handling all of these monumental problems and even big death and unfortunate things. But oh God, I had no ability to handle the gentleness of life. I had no ability to handle the fun and the excitement and the joy. I did not know how to do that. I was born with an innate sense of disappointment. It came over me like a shadow. I just anticipated that it would always be the way it was. I could never differentiate the truth from the false when it came to getting excited. I never knew when to believe you. I never knew when you would disappoint me. Unbelievable things that you are granted the opportunity to experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. Stay sober through it all. Through it all. So he said to me, the way that you stay sober for the rest of your life, one day at a time, is that you must go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous for the rest of your life. The guy was big on the rest of your life. Well, I don't know how long more I have to live. With the technology of today, I might be living a very long time. I intend to go to meetings for the rest of my life. I don't know how not to. I don't know how not to go to meetings. It's so against my grain. I have enough friends around me that if I suddenly decided not to go to meetings, I would hope that they would tell me that I would drink if I don't. Because you see, I believe I will. I don't even have a doubt about it. I have no reservation whatsoever that if I stop attending meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, I will drink. I have had more and more and more and more and more people that I know personally that break my heart with a lot of sobriety, go out and never come back because they stopped going to meetings. What is the most common thing you hear? They stopped going to meetings. If I stop going to meetings, then I'm not going to know how to come to believe, how to restore myself, how to turn that over, and how to get the help I need. I am going to forget about how to do that. Self-reliance kept me drunk. Self-reliance will make me drink again. Simple. Now, I know there's actually some people out there that don't go to meetings, and you know what? They don't drink. Well, more power to them. I wouldn't want their miserable little lives. My first judgment openly of the evening. I like to know that I'm human. You know, it keeps me in balance. The truth is I don't know about their lives. The truth is I convinced myself 27 years ago that if I don't go to meetings, I will drink. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy. I know that. Besides, I went to meetings at the beginning because I needed to. I stayed until I wanted to go. I can't imagine not going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Can't imagine. They told me at the Hole in the Ground that I was the kind of alcoholic that should put my cap back on the toothpaste, because what drunk puts their cap back on the toothpaste? To go home and to do those little things, to make my bed every day, to clean my house. He said, you know, you've got to go to meetings. You've got to clean your house. I said, okay. And I cleaned that house. You know, and there was a certain time of the month, and you know how clean those houses can become. And you could have had surgery on my house. He said, did you put your cap back on the toothpaste? To this day, I put my cap back on the toothpaste. The habits of sobriety. What does that got to do with anything? I believe, in my own way, that if I had not learned to put the cap back on the toothpaste, I would not be the consistent, neat, orderly person that I am today. It was the beginning of a habit. It was the beginning of the habit of sobriety. It was the beginning of the habit of living. I stopped dying when I joined Alcoholics Anonymous. I started living fully when I stopped blaming you for me not being able to. And I was sober when I blamed you. And I was sober when I went back out there and created my own destiny. And I was sober when all those things happened to me. And I wish it all for you. I wish you every mistake you can make sober. I wish you the opportunity to get back up on your feet. I wish you happiness and sadness and joy and all of it. Because isn't that how you find out how big your God is? Go to meetings, clean your house, read the big book. Don't come back and tell us what you think. And don't go anywhere you can't bring your God. And nothing has changed. I go to meetings. I keep my house in order. I read the big book and the 12 and 12. I don't think it's a mistake that Bill Wilson wrote that 13 or 14 years later. He knew a lot more. It is now more important to me than even somewhat the big book, because it takes me to a deeper level. I don't know how to read the big book without the 12 and 12, and I don't know how to read the 12 and 12 without the big book. To me, it's just one big book. There's another book in process, and that's the book of my life, the book that I write, the book that I write with my God, the book that no one will ever read but me. The book that I'm reading, that I'm writing. The book where it says more will be revealed. It's the book of my life. It's written in symbology. It's in the words of kindness that I remember sometimes. It's documenting the feelings of kindness when somebody is good to me. This is a symbology of coming to just share at a meeting. It's all the incidences of coming to believe. All the perceptions that have changed for me. Perception, a change in perception is a miracle. If you were to just sit right now, if you're sober 1 year or 47 or 6 years, and think about how much change in perception you have had, you couldn't count the miracles. They would be just too many of them. And you know what's great about miracles? From once you get the hang of this miracle thing, I expect them. I wouldn't know what to do without a miracle. I would not know how to have a day that didn't have miracles. They're just the way it is for me. You see, I'm an alcoholic. I want it all. just because I got sober doesn't mean I don't want it all. I don't know how not to have it all. The I want in me that was there when I drank. That alcohol fired that imagination. Where I went to dream, where I went to fantasize. That's what booze did for me for the longest time. It created dreams, it created fantasies, it took me away. And it said, you can have whatever you want. All those things that you need to protect yourself with. You know, I got sober and I stopped drinking, and that did not change. I needed something else to take me to those places. And I went out there and I created, boom, 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 that stress of the world to take me. And I thought, if I can protect myself, if I can have all those accoutrements, if I can have money, if I can do those things, I can get what I want. And you know what I really wanted? I wanted to get the hell away from you as far as I could. And I was sober, active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was saying the right things and doing the right things. And all of us were patting each other on the back. And the truth was, I was building the vision for myself. I couldn't understand. I knew that there was a God. My God, how can you not know there's a God if you're sitting in this room tonight? How can you not know? You can kid yourself, but the truth is, there's a God or you wouldn't be here. Imagine yourself sitting in this chair, and not as you look beautiful tonight, but on your first night of meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Hey, there's a miracle. Think of how you looked and think of how you felt. You didn't look like this, I can assure you. You know, what are you doing in Chicago? What the hell are you doing in Chicago? With 2,400 women looking great, feeling good, wanting to scream your excitement, wanting to be able to not have to contain it, wanting to be free for just 5 minutes of saying, oh my God, something profound has happened to me. Something huge has happened to me. Maybe they don't all understand outside of AA. Maybe my family and my husband and my children and my life and my lovers and my friends don't understand. But in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, we understand. This guy's got me so wrecked with the time. Normally I don't cooperate at all, but he's been so nice to me for the last couple of days. So there it was, the beginning of my sobriety. The 4 things that I do now, I did then. Put that cap back on that toothpaste. Make that bed so you don't get back into it. You know? I don't know about you, but when I want that spiritual energy and when I want those angels to land and I want to be filled up with that, it just doesn't come to me when I'm in a laying down position. I don't know. I mean, they can't land on me or something. Something does not happen. I have to be standing upright in order to feel this grayish reality deep within. I just can never feel it when I'm on my back. Not necessarily so. Never been better, to tell you the truth. I am there now. All there. Wanting to be there. Hell, I was this good at 50. Can you imagine 60? I'm just getting used to this whole thing. I'm just beginning to live. I've brought myself to this point. I've just matured into myself. I just fit my body about 3 years ago. I don't know if you feel that, but I just kind of fit myself. Suddenly I looked around. I'm sober 18, 19 years. Well, 7 years ago really, but profoundly 3 years ago. I looked around. I looked at my hands, and I remember when I was a little child, I always wanted to have bigger hands. You know, I wanted to be able to touch more things, and I loved my hands. I wanted to be able to touch things with them. And God, I'm looking at my hands a few years ago sober, and I'd grown into my hands. And I loved my hands. And in the last 3 years, I've grown into my body. I don't know how to explain it. But I kind of like grew into myself. I grew up. You don't have to wait as long as I did. It just took a long time for me because I was so terribly insecure. I had so much that I created sober that I had to unlearn sober. You know, in order for me to feel secure, I had to go out there and get security. And then I found out, wow, it's not going to do it. Here I have all this stuff that every magazine in the world and book and person and lecturer will tell you you're supposed to have, and it'll make you feel really good. And you know what? Didn't. I had not shared enough of it with my God. I had shared enough to stay sober, but I did not share enough to own it. Really something. Walking around 18, 19 years sober, you know, they want you to know something. They expect you to say something. It's just such a drag all the time. I'm telling you, it's just a horror. I finally reached a stage when people call me on the phone and just like, get to the bottom line. I mean, what the hell's the point? You're going to have a change. Everything changes. It doesn't matter what your trauma is. Every problem's a spiritual problem. Every solution's a spiritual solution. Call me tomorrow. That's it. You know, I mean, isn't it the truth? Boy, been there, done that. You're not going to kill yourself. Unfortunately, you're going to live. You're probably going to live a long time. Call somebody closer in your years of sobriety so you can commiserate over this drama. You know? That's what I was thinking. I'm 19 years sober and I am having a depression. I would like to have it with some modulum of peace. I am sober long enough to know that if you're going to be depressed, for God's sake, be comfortable and depressed. What was wrong with me? What was wrong with me is that I had become healthy enough as a result of my association with Alcoholics Anonymous, as a result of my willingness to live, as a result of my looking at the book and doing the steps in whatever haphazard manner I did them. Enough to become healthy enough to know that I was missing God. That's what happened to me. You know, a couple of years ago I heard a story about a little tiny baby that was born to this family. Now, I'm Irish, I embellish, I have made this story my own. I'm telling you right now, not my story. I'm not even going to tell it like it is, but I'm going to tell you the way I hear it. I imagine it, and I have felt it. Anyway, this little baby was born into this family, and this mother and father had a little girl, and she was about that big, in my mind, and she kept bugging her mother and father that she wanted to spend some time alone with this little baby. She wanted to be alone and wanted to close the door. She wanted to talk to this little baby by herself. Of course, you know, they're parents of the 90s. They thought, oh, she's going to kill the kid the minute we leave her. Why not, you know? Eventually, she bugged them, and they let her into the room. Now, they had put a baby monitor under the pillow and a baby monitor at the door, and they're like ready, like the SWAT team, to go in there. But they left her alone, and she did. She closed that door, this little tiny girl. 5 or 6 probably, and she went up to the crib of the newborn little brother, and she bent down and she whispered in his ear, help me, I'm beginning to forget God. Help me, I'm beginning to forget God. When I was 18 or 19 years sober, I was struck with a profound reality. And I started to pray like I have never prayed before. Help me, I'm beginning to remember God. Help me, I'm beginning to remember God. And that created such a desperation in me that I did not know what to do. And I knew that the solution outside of me was no longer going to work. And I did something that only people like you and I know how to do. I went back to the beginning, and I took that big book, and I read it from the table of contents, every single word, through 164 pages. And then I went to the 12 and 12, and I read it from the table of contents, all the way through, including the traditions. And I read it again, and I read it again. And every time I read it, I found something more meaningful. And every time I read it, the anxiety lessened, and the chains that were around my soul began to loosen up. And I knew that I had found the answer. I went back to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I listened. I listened like only the dying can. And what I was dying from now was a disease that we all are touched upon, if we are honest, sober. Soul sickness. A soul sickness. And I listened, and I listened, and I listened. And the newcomer and the old-timer, whatever they said, healed me. They may have been talking about their problems and their alcoholism and their whatever, but they were talking about their search for God. And it was no mistake that that's what I needed. And my life began to take on a whole new dimension. And I knew that stone cold sober, I was back down on the mental bathroom floor saying, God, help me. Only this time, I had had a profound miracle for the physical disease of alcoholism, and this time I knew that if I stayed and prayed, that a profound thing was going to happen, and that I would create a change that would affect my whole life by making room for God. And I thought, how do I make room for God? Because I knew now that that was the answer. What do I have to do? And I knew that the answer was in the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it did not diminish one bit the way I had taken them before. It changed nothing for me. It changed nothing. All it meant now is that I had to work them in order. All it meant now was that I was sober long enough that I had to find a way to wear those steps as my own. They were no longer the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They were no longer the steps of you. They were no longer the steps of the group. They were my steps. They had to become mine. I had to bring them inside of me. The great reality was that it had to be inside. I used to look and I used to wonder, how do these people have this God? Where do they get this peace? Where do they look to? How do you have it? And I used to read about this inside, and there were moments, of course, throughout the years that I would feel something inside, something like true peace, but not really. And I used to think, what am I doing wrong? How can I be sober all these years and not have this thing inside? This great reality, the spirit of the universe, friend. You see, I could not deal with that Christian God. There was too much judgment for me. This is my opinion. Not debatable after I finish speaking. My opinion. It was fine for my mother, a devout Roman Catholic. It was fine for St. Anthony's God. I still pray to the guy when but it was fine for all of that. But it wasn't enough for me. You see, I couldn't do that. That was part of my disappointment. I knew that there was something different, and I had to find it. And believe it or not, people say, the big book is Christian. It leaves us out. It does this. I found great reality deep within. Spirit of the universe. Friend. What a way to describe God. I could take this God. I could make that God my own. I was powerless over my inability to live life by myself. I was powerless over my judgment of you. I was powerless over my envy. I was powerless over my insecurities. I was powerless over everything. All I did after my 5th year of sobriety is go back out there and prove to myself that I could do anything I wanted to do by myself. And I patted myself and AA on the back for giving me that kind of strength and courage. Let me tell you how lonely it is to do it when only you've put your hand in God's hand. When the only amount of energy that I would only allow God to hold my hand. I would allow a couple of angels to accompany me. I would fill the room with angels in a boardroom when I had a very big meeting. And I would call upon this spiritual energy whenever I wanted it. But I did not have it with me all of the time. And I didn't feel it inside. And I wanted to feel it inside. And I decided that I wanted to understand how I could have that while I was alive. I had no intention of dying to be united with this great light, with this wonder, with the spirit of the universe. No. I want to know now. I have had millions of things happen to me, millions of miracles. If the second step is true, and I can come to believe, then I can be restored to that child. I can remember God quite alive. And I wanted that. And you know what? I have a God that's so profound and so huge and so big, and it began to change definition, and everything I ever believed left me. I had to change everything. I had to change everything I'd ever known for the 45 years or 40 years I was alive to that time. All those things were old ideas. I had to take the slate and wipe it clean. The only thing I had left is that I had to go to meetings, wouldn't go anywhere I wouldn't bring my God, read the big book in the 12 and 12, keep my house clean, keep my side of the street clean. Boy, I understood that then, and that's what began for me. That's what began for me. And in the last few years, I have spent a lot of time practicing these steps. Every opportunity I get, throughout the whole month of January, for instance, I practice the first step. And any opportunity I get to feel what powerlessness may feel like, I say, oh yeah, that's what powerless is. I'm powerless over that reaction. I'm powerless over the way she looked at me. I'm powerless over the way I thought about her. I'm powerless, I'm powerless, I'm powerless, I'm powerless, I'm powerless. And I feel unmanageable. I know instantly how it feels to feel unmanageable. It hits me right in the stomach. It's a physical experience for me. I automatically want that power now. I have enough hope in the second step to know that if I'm honest enough about how I feel in the first step, I can just ask. And I have come to believe 1,000 times that I will be restored. I will be restored to what? Well, it's got all kinds of definitions for me now, the sanity, but mostly I'll accept balance. I'll just take balance, you know? Enough of a good day, enough bad, enough. I'll just take balance. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I don't want perfect. I just want balance. Balance from me may be very different than balance from you. That's why we can all talk to one another. That's why the seesaw tips. Balance is fine for me. When I really feel insane, if I do not handle that unmanageability, if I don't go to the third step, if I don't make that decision, and I actually prolong it to the point of almost insanity, do you know what that is for me? I feel a conscious disconnection from my God. I do not feel connected to my God. It makes me feel very insane. Rarely does that happen anymore. Because now, when I am powerless over something, when I have a little uncomfortable feeling in me, a little sense of something, when I start to want to manage your life, for instance, something little like that. When I feel like not getting up in the morning. When I feel like, what the hell's the use anyway? When those negative thoughts seem to push in there. When I'm judging a lot. When I'm blowing the horn in anticipation of their stupidity. I now can just ask for balance. I make a decision to turn my will and my life over to God. I ask for the help. But that decision has to be made now for me quickly. I make that decision sometimes within a second. I don't feel right. You can help me. I can be restored. Please help me. Yes, I would like the help. And you know what has come to me for me now in my program? A resounding voice out of the heavens yells, "What have you got in the way?" And then I have to look at what I have put in the way. What is the shadow that I have cast on the light? I can no longer blame you. I can no longer blame God. I can no longer blame the world. I have something in the way. I have something in the way. And when I think I can figure that out in its elaborate way, and over the years it may have involved therapy, and sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't, and it is whatever I write, and all the things that everybody suggests all work, I then go to a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and have enough integrity and honesty with each other that I can discuss what it is that I think is in the way. And what does that mean for me now? It means that I can get it down to something specific. It means that I will go to somebody with enough experience and enough honesty in the spiritual realm so they will say to me, "Oh, what is all that drama? You know, the bottom line is you were a creep. You did that. Oh, my God. Why is that important to me now? A, I don't want to waste a lot of time feeling uncomfortable. And B, I got to go to the sixth step. I am only entirely ready when I know specifically what the hell's wrong with me. And then I am only entirely ready when I say to myself, and I can only say it to me, and you cannot help me, I accept you anyway, Lila. It's okay that you were blah, blah, blah. It's fine. God loves me, no problem. And the minute I can accept me as I am today, precisely as I am today, the seventh step automatically kicks into a huge miracle by itself, and I can humbly say, please help me. Please help me. There are many days when I have gone through the day saying, please help me, please help me, please help me. It is at that point that I can look around in today and I can say, I can look around in today and I can say to myself, is there anybody that I hurt while I was insane? While I was unmanageable? Sometimes I didn't hurt anybody but myself. Sometimes I never left the house. Sometimes I never left the bed. Sometimes. And then I have to do an amend of my own thinking. So the steps work very personally, very intricately, very involved way. So now I'm at 10, and it's so easy. I'm powerless over X. I feel unmanageable. I know I can be restored. I've been restored 3 or 4 times yesterday. Please help me. What is in the way? Has this ever been in your way? What exactly do you think is wrong with me? God, this is what's wrong with me. It's okay. I'll get over this too. Can you help me? I'm really sorry if I was in a bad place yesterday and interfered in your life. That was really none of my business. Okay, we're okay again. That's my life. That's how it functions. During the day or at night, before I go to sleep, most nights, not every night, most nights, I write a letter. Dear Great Spirit. And I date it, whatever today's date is. I only live today now. Yesterday is over. Tomorrow has not come. Today is the rest of my life. Today. And I date it because it's today. And I have a formal communication. Dear Great Spirit. And anything that's bothering me, I don't write all this massive stuff anymore. Never go to sleep. I just write questions. What do I do about this? What do I do about that? When, what, where, how? Do I? Should I? Will I? Can I? When do you think I should? Now, I'm not talking about monumental problems. I don't have really right at this precise moment monumental problems. Unfortunate, I would say that. My nephew is dying. My sister may live. These are monumental problems. But you know that in the spiritual realm right now, they're workable for me. They're manageable because I have given them to my God. When do I visit my nephew? What do I say? How do I say it? What, when, where, how? About anything. Anything. If I want the windows cleaned, when do I call the guy to come and clean the windows? Every question, so that when I go to sleep, there's nothing on my mind. Nothing on my mind. Can you imagine? Nothing. What, when, where, how, and why? I believe in the question of life. I spent 19 sober years creating the answer. What did it do for me? Separated me from my God. What does the question do for me? Puts me in memory of my God. Makes me remember that I have a God. I ask. Says somewhere, don't ask for anything. What crap? I'm not asking for a Mercedes. I'm asking for help. And I ask, and I ask, and I ask, and I ask. And I don't know how not to ask. And throughout the big book it says, receive, receive, receive. The word no one ever talks about, particularly women. The broken part of us, the receiving part. I ask so that I can receive the gift that I have been promised in this life. The gift of help from my spiritual universe. The gift of help from the silent world. The gift of help from everyone that's gone on before me. The gift of help that is constantly and forever there. I ask to make room for the answer. And I go to sleep. Now, I don't know what you do when you sleep, after you've had your glorious moments at 50. But I'll tell you what I do when I sleep. I close my eyes after I throw this piece of paper away. And I expect that I will be taught, that the answer will come to me, that God is already working, that my angels are talking to your angels, and you are going to appear in front of me tomorrow, and you will tell me exactly what the answer is. And it will come in the form of a person, place, thing, event, or an article in the newspaper, or an AA meeting or something. And all I have to do is get out of the way and do nothing. Do nothing. The most spiritually profound thing I've ever done sober since I've been 20 years sober is nothing. It is so hard to do nothing. 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 God help me and do nothing. My God yells from the heavens, get out of the way. Stop it so we can help you. Do nothing so we can get in. Stop thinking. Get rid of those thoughts. Make room in your heart. Make room in your soul. Get healthier in your body. Get in balance, Lila. Get to a meeting. Get out of the way. You bet I gotta jump out of bed in the morning. I don't know what's gonna happen when I get up in the morning anymore. I'm expecting a whole bunch of stuff. And I believe I'm going to get it. How does a child born in Ireland who believed in disappointment, who was disappointed, who had all those things happen, who left that country, who saw the death, who saw the separation, who had abandonment issues that would make the books on these psychiatrists shrivel in their seats? What happens to these children? What happens to these people when they join Alcoholics Anonymous, when the booze doesn't work anymore, and they stop talking about their problems, and they start living in the solution, when they start putting their cap on the toothpaste? How does it happen that by making your bed you get up? How does it happen? Because in a deep depression you answer the phone because another member of AA calls and they're going to kill themselves and you got to help them first before you kill yourself. How does that happen? How do you go from being a person who has to have money and property and power? When I was a little nothing, I wanted to be a bigger nothing. And when I was a vice president, I wanted to be a president. And when I was a president, I wanted to be a CEO. And when I was a CEO, I wanted to be the chairman. And when I was a chairman, I wanted to own the goddamn place. And you know something? I did all that. And guess what? Nothing. Nothing. I was moving too fast. I didn't make room. I forgot. It didn't do it for me. It didn't fix it. That child grew up. That child joined Alcoholics Anonymous. This child just became an adult at 25 years of sobriety. The child is now 27 years sober, 50 years of age, not afraid of disappointment. Doesn't have anybody that she's running away from. In love with life. In love with my partner, in love with my body, in love with my goddamn hot flashes, in love with myself. I am truly in love with myself. And I'll tell you something. It is the most humbling experience I have ever had. Because the more I love me, the more I love you. The kinder I am to me, the kinder I am to you. The more forgiving I am of me, the more forgiving I am of you. How did I learn it? Oh, maybe I learned it by being forgiving of you first. I'm not sure. I'm not certain that I've been that forgiving of you all these years. I certainly didn't stop judging you. But you know what? I found out something really important in AA. If you don't drink, you can't get drunk. If you go to meetings, you won't think about drinking. If you keep your side of the street clean, it'll occupy all of your time. If you read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 and 12 with an open mind, you will find every single solitary answer that you need in order to have a perception change that will cause you to have a brand new life. Sober. And I don't care if you have 18 children, 17 husbands, all of it or none of it. I don't care if you love your life. If you turn yourself over to this God and you really believe in miracles, then you know what? Tomorrow is a brand new day. Brand new day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know what I'd like. I'd like my partner who I love dearly to still be there. I'd like my health to still be as good as it seemingly is, except for a little bad knee. I'd like to like you more. I'd like to feel safer. I'd like to never have to do it alone again. I don't want to do it alone. I came into this world not unlike that little boy, that little child, alone. I looked out there and I saw my mother, the Blessed Virgin reincarnate, my father, the drunk, and I thought, wow. And then they had all these children, and I was alone. And when I joined Alcoholics Anonymous and I felt that kinship with other alcoholics, why, it worked for a couple of years, and then I began to feel alone again. Now I'm sober and alone. Do you know, I'm no longer alone. I have now a belief that is so profound. Well, I hate to tell you this. I wasn't going to bring it up. But you know, I'm surrounded now. I'm surrounded with all sorts of energy and things and spirits that you can't see. Sometimes I can see them. I want to see them more. I intuitively now feel that if I get out of the way, the answer will come. I don't even have to think about it. I just have to ask for it. What do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? Should I do it? Will I? Will I? I feel the presence of God. Not a God, not the God. I don't believe there is a the God. I feel the presence of all that power. I don't know what it looks like. I couldn't tell you. I only know this. It's bigger than Scotch. It's even bigger than Alcoholics Anonymous. It's bigger than anything I could even imagine. And some days I feel it all. And I wonder why my lungs don't explode. I wonder what happens. I have found a great reality deep within. A couple of years ago, I felt it. I felt it. I was in a meeting not too long ago, and a man was speaking. His name was Cubby. And he said that he used to pray to God out there. And now he said he doesn't pray to God at all. He prays from God. And I started to cry openly in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I knew that even though it had taken me 27 years, I was praying from God out. My friend Jane describes the root of the word I as the fountain, Greek. Fountains flow out. It is all inside of me. It's in there. I'm safe. It can never go away again. I don't know how it could go away. I don't have any habits that make it go away. I have learned the sober habits of recovery, and then I learned the sober habits of living. I learned how to put my cap on the toothpaste, get up in the morning, reach out to another alcoholic or human being, if that matter, read a little bit of the big book. Understand how the steps work in my life and make them my life. Wear them like a loose garment. Read that book. That book is so profound. It's obviously divinely inspired. I am not afraid to reach back and say, where are you? Touch me on the shoulder. Push me forward. I walk with the angels. I walk with them every day. I walk with so many spirits and energy around me. I am safe. I will never be alone again. I can't be alone. I have a silent world that has opened up to me. I think they call it the fourth dimension in the big book. They talk about it, this intuitiveness that begins to happen. You want to know something profound? It's beginning to happen for me. If I stay in balance and I do what's physically right and emotionally right, then you know what? The spiritual part will take care of itself. All I have to do is put one foot in front of the other and show up. So now, how complicated has my life gotten? Let me tell you. Easy does it. First things first. But for the grace of God, live and let live. All the slogans, the simplicity of the big book, the 12 and 12, regular attendance at meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, the willingness to tell you who I am. This is the best I could possibly be, this precise moment. I cannot get any better. I can't imagine it. I am the best woman I have ever been. I am so grateful to be alive. I can't wait to live more. I've just begun. I'm 27 years sober and I've just begun. I found my God and my God found me and we love each other. I believe in miracles. I don't know how many of you remember Catherine Kuhlman. But God, she used to say, I believe. Well, let me tell you something. I could shout it from the tower of the Sears building, wherever it is. I believe in miracles. I believe in life. I believe in God. What has it got to do with Alcoholics Anonymous? Absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. I hate to tell you, and I don't care if you're sober one day. This is a spiritual program. Stop wasting time. That's where it is. Every problem is a spiritual problem. Every problem. Every problem. Every problem has a spiritual solution. Oh, how I fought and resisted going to that God. Now I run. I run to my God. I run to that paper. Dear Great Spirit. And tonight I will be able to, on my knees every night. You see, I don't go where I can't bring my God. I have a person and when we go, Jane and I share that spirituality. She's on her side of the bed on her knees, and I'm on my side on my knees, and guess what I'll be saying tonight? Thank you. Thank you for giving me myself. Thank you for giving me my soul. Thank you for healing the soul sickness of my sobriety. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to other women. Thank you for telling me and letting me be a channel for you. Thank you.